Mr. Ndolo is... my name is Suba Churchill. I wanted to say that if the figures given by Mr. Ndolo are to be trusted, then there is a communication problem from the National Treasury. Because Mr. Ndolo has even made a remark that these are the things Kara wanted the public to hear. It is not Kara. What became of our national values and principles of governance that are supposed to be binding on all state organs and public bodies like National Treasury? I think the challenge is on the National Treasury to come up with a communication strategy, because blaming the media for running comments that are made by public opinion shapers is not the solution. I think public finance management issues have been shrouded in unnecessary secrecy, and the National Treasury really needs to up its game so that the public really needs to know some of these developments rather than wait for Kara to organize a forum like this so that you can defend yourself and even have the temerity to blame the media and those who are saying anything to the contrary. Thank you.
Very brief. My names are George Mungao Okonji from Bunge la Wazalendo. Mr. Ndolo, I give you only 30% of your presentation. It was correct. 70% down the drainage. Now, very brief. A credit ratings firm in the US by the name Moody has downgraded Kenya from B1 to B2. Why is it that way? It is that way because we are not able to service our loans. I don't want to go into details. I have all the details here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Meeting. I have a comment. And a question. Briefly. I congratulate Kara for providing us this venue. But Kara has much to do in public education. Two, Kara, we should be wasting our time gathering here, but our comments, our questions are not taken home. My question is, my question goes to Mr. Ndolo. We were told we have been allowed to borrow 2 billion shillings. But from a reliable resource, data shows Kenya has been lent 169 billion. Why? Where is 40 billion? The promise was 200 billion, but we have been given 169 only. Now, where is 40? Lastly, when the government is preparing its budget, or when they are planning to borrow, why government does not engage Wanjiku, who is a taxpayer, who normally the burden of paying back this money, it must be collected from taxpayers. But we are not involved when the government wants to borrow this money.
Public consultation.
Yes, public consultation. Thank you.
Okay.
Lastly, what we have heard from Mr. Ndolo, yes, it is encouraging, but I doubt, because what we have been heard from here, it is not what Wanjiku is seeing, because you will see Unga has gone up, APCT. Why?
My concern is how do you expect us to raise revenue if the environment is not conducive? For example, when you want to travel, for example, in the town center, you're not able to even to do business because of traffic jam. You spend the whole day on the road. There is also harassment by the authorities. When you want to do business, you are harassed by authority. Right now, I have an example with Kirinyaga County. Those people, they are very friendly when you're doing business there. They approach you in a friendly manner. But come in Alombi, the state council will hide you somewhere just to make sure that you have parked your car and they're there, and there they come and they club your car. And maybe you want to go somewhere for a business. Then insecurity is another problem.
I think the point is the environment
corruption.
is not conducive
Yes.
for doing business.
Yes, that is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next.
Yeah, it is good to have debt in this country in terms of spurring the economy for production. And in fact, this was said by an ambassador from China. If you look at the Nation today on page 5, whereby they say the trade imbalance and get used to trade imbalance and public debt, which is okay. And quite often, we always compare this country with Mauritius, Singapore, and China, which is now one of the largest economies in this country. At some point in time, we always compare ourselves to say we were here. But these countries have moved forward. In terms of borrowing in this country, and I want to ask this now to Mr. Ndoro, how much are we doing to make it sure that of the money that is borrowed out of this country, that all this money is put into productive use? Because of our worry is the pace at which we take in this country to grow our economy has always been very slow. And probably much of the money that has been borrowed from out of this country, maybe over 40% goes into wrong use or probably goes into corruption. So that is one of the major concerns, that is what's bringing this country backwards always. Asante, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Movin Omondi. I'm a student. I also work with Student for Liberty. I had two questions, but one has been asked, but I'll still ask it. Because for me, I think the issue of debt is not even about whether it's wrong or right. It's about the perception, and the perception that has been created lately in the minds of the people is of that of corruption. So my question is basically about the integrity. What can we do to probably eliminate this perception that all the money that is being borrowed is actually being stolen? We remember the Eurobond saga and all those things. Then my second question is about, you've insisted on domestic borrowing, which is really good, but looking at the terms, for example, a big fuss in Kenya right now is borrowing from China. And to be honest, most of these conditions are actually killing the local industries. Like you find you borrow money, they give you loans to build a road, they take like 70% of the engineers here to Kenya, all the material are imported from there. So how do you expect the locals to actually generate wealth to lend the government the money you expect them to lend? Thank you.
Last one, yeah, please.
Good morning, I'm John Wangai from Youth Senate Kenya, and my question is that we all know the banking amendment bill was signed into law on the 25th August 2016, and we have seen how the bill has adversely affected the country. So my question to Mr. Dolo, as the Director of Policy Making, what are your plans on the bill so that it can make the country more productive? Thank you.
Yes, I know. My name is Andrew Franklin, and I work for myself. I've been here since 1981. Somehow this discussion became value-laden and ambiguous. It's superficial, narrowly focused on taxes versus debt. Much of this nice discussion was irrelevant to reality. And with all due respect, there is no rational basis for project appraisal in this country. We borrow to build projects and nobody knows why we're doing them. Where are the needs assessments? It's been mentioned, public participation. These are GOK priorities that have little or nothing to do with people. A few examples of coming debt. $438 million to buy 12 air tractor close air support aircraft, which are in fact needed, but not at $139 million more than what the original American manufacturer wanted to charge. The $3 billion Bechtel superhighway. Yes, there's people are lobbying because it's great debt. It's your debt. The thing about the air tractor contract that the U.S. government found no problem with is it's your money. It's not my country's money. You're going to pay for it more than you need to. And you're buying American-made weapons. Great. Bechtel will build highways anywhere. I think Dr. Araki mentioned the interstate highway system in America, built during the 50s for strategic reasons, not for economic reasons.
Thank you, Franklin.
And what about the $200 million Lamu coal project? Do we need that electricity? Do we know if we need it? This is debt. This is mega debt.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the point is made. The last one on this row, Banambug.
Thank you. I want to, first of all, appreciate the good presentations that have been made to this forum. I also want to emphasize on the fact that although we have been reassured about our debt sustainability, we think our main concern was how best is our debt being utilized.
My name is Tabu Charles, Chairman Bunge la Wazalendo, and my point is very clear and brief. Kenya is a very sinful nation, to be precise. When we are here for public participation and creation of awareness to the public. We should stand by the truth. We should not have professions who are here coming to try to divert our minds to convince us in another way. Yet we know the pillars of this economy right now, of this country. During my time, we knew it was agriculture. But from 2013 to 2018, we don't know our pillar of economy. There is what we call millennium goals that we do not even achieve. Right now we have again Vision 2030. Truly speaking, I don't know whether I'll be there, God forbid, but Kenya is not going to achieve Vision 2030 with this kind of conduct of the leaders we have because of poor governance. Banandolo. There is Galana project, which was initiated with funds borrowed. But this project, we end up Israel people being arrested. But in Kenya, they are scot-free. We want to compare Kenya with the US, Japan. But if you look at infrastructure in the US and the priorities of US is a country of social security whereby the old guards are getting their pension through their taxes they used to pay. But Kenya is a country whereby the pensioners' funds is being looted by people in leadership. So how do you compare two countries? We can't. Let us talk the truth. Lecturers right now are not being paid. All the agreements signed by the government, we are seeing they are not being fulfilled. Let us not pretend this country is rotten. Unless we rectify this problem is when we can take the right direction. And it starts with the governance. You talk about the issue of debt services. People are jobless entirely. More 65% of Kenyans are jobless, and some others are resigning because of the conduct of policies within the government, like Kenya Police. Surely, will we pay these things with jobless people? Take an example of somebody who is jobless and he has school children and family to feed. Yeah. Will you be borrowing money to take your child to school, pay your rent you borrow, take your medical bill you borrow? Surely, it can't happen. Let us be sincere.
Thank you. The point is noted.
And our good professor asked the question himself, but he didn't give us the answer. Why are we all the time, we're being bashed? Kenya is with a problem when it comes to borrowing and maybe repaying the loans. And yet, from what Banandolo showed us here, we are not really that high. We're somewhere in the middle as a country. But what is the reason? Why is it all the time people are saying Kenya is a problem, Kenya is a problem? When you see smoke, just know there is somewhere, some little fire burning somewhere. Can we please, and I'm urging the professor to give us that answer, because it's as if he knew the answer, but he did not give us the true answer. Thank you.
That these are aspects of the law. Now, my name is Leonard Wanyama, and I'm from the East Africa Tax and Governance Network. And there are two things that I wanted to speak about, and it's a bit like reinforcing what you said. I think the first thing is that as much as we are talking about debt, the challenge in this discussion is that we are not being told the implications, for instance, for the poor and the marginalized, because there are implications to them. And in that respect, if you look at some of the discussion that's coming up with things like income tax or value-added tax, these are things that directly touch on the poor. And these are the majority of the people, and that's what would bring these anxieties and skepticism. Secondly, on the issue of comparisons, it's very good. We are very ambitious. We are thinking of comparing ourselves to the US, to Singapore, Japan, Mauritius. But if you look at those countries, and it is also very fair in that kind of presentation to add aspects of like a corruption index, because that statistic is there, those comparisons are there, and we can see very clearly, if you compare our levels of corruption and pilferage, you cannot compare that with Japan. They can borrow that amount because they don't have leakage of resources from their coffers. You see, the magic in this country is that we can imagine that we can continue fetching water in a cracked bucket, and we say that compared to other people with cracked buckets, it is fine. Yeah? So I think we have to address the fact that we need a better bucket and we can fetch as much water as we want. Thank you.
First of all, let me thank Kara and the Treasury for this workshop. And my question to the Treasury is, it's more of how can we come up with more of sensitization workshops like this, not only in Nairobi, just as he had said, within the counties, so that then the public are sensitized in terms of how is the borrowing and aspects, and again also in the area of our own Kenyans now. How do we empower our own, the Juakalis, name them, the Mama Bogas, and people who are innovative? How do we empower these innovative ideas to have enough resources in terms of making the country forward and pushing the country to the level where it requires?
Thank you very much.
I had an observation to say that as a country, we should be cautious of external debt distress, and I think he had actually addressed that. We should remain within our sustainable bounds, and then authorities should strengthen debt management capacity to manage and prepare for large repayments on commercial borrowing. Then lastly, consequential borrowing is very important because it has a big financial impact on investment projects. That was my take.
Asante sana. Thank you for those comments. Thank you for your question.
There are some observations that I've made during the question issue, and most of them we need public participation to be involved in whatever the government is doing. But the question is, the public participation is a major issue that most of us want to come out clear. But I have some issues that maybe you want to comment on. For example, the first one on job creation. The government, during the political arena, the campaign, they say they are creating 500 jobs, 1,000 jobs in the country. These jobs, they are not created directly by the government. The jobs are created indirectly. It's upon you and me to create the jobs. The only thing the government does is give conducive business environment. They build the roads, they build the rates, they build the dams. They give the power for us to build the jobs and create more jobs. And also, on the issue of domestic borrowing, the government is trying to borrow much in domestically, but our economy cannot support this. Why? We as Kenyans, we have not empowered ourselves to direct the government. For example, the CMA, the Capital Market Authority, has no capability of giving the government. We should have come policies whereby we can empower the CMA and other institutions so that it can be able to give the government more money. There was a question about the pillar of the economy. Do you know, the pillar of the economy, the government, who is government? That's the first question you can ask yourself. It's me, you and me. Government is not treasury. Government is not the president. It's you and me. What are you doing where you are? If as a farmer, the little farmer you're doing, the milk farmer, do something that milking farmer you're doing and be able to be a pillar of the economy. The agriculture died. Who keep the agriculture is us, not the government. We farmers keep the economy, the agriculture, the peregrine, the coffee, and the tea, because we are not participating in it. And also there's the issue of corporate governance integrity. On corporate governance, we find many such papers have been done in this country, but they have not implemented. That's the major issue, because you find there is a lot of disconnection between the running institution and the industry. We should empower on corporate governance. You have institutions like anti-corruption, they are not doing their work. So I think those issues, some of these institutions that can come on board that bring the corruption down. On corruption issue index, who is corrupt? It's not the police, it's you and me. Who gives the money? It's you. So who is corrupt? Both of us are corrupt. So you not be blame the government or the police, they are corrupt. All of us are corrupt. So as a country, as an individual, come with the policy, I'll not be corrupt. I'll not give in money. Start from your family, start from your children to have good morals. Starting from there. And for that, the country be a good morals and the country be good. Thank you.
I think I'm enjoying the debate, particularly as an honest broker observing from the peripheries. Surprising, nobody is asking me questions, which is very good. I suspect because I asked you so many questions in the cards and exams, you don't want to use this opportunity to revenge. Now let me react to a few issues. One of them is, Mr. Conchera, you asked a very good question. What is a Kenyan problem? How comes you always complain about this country? I think my biggest problem with Kenyans, and I'm one of them, is that we love pessimism. I don't know where that came from, but we love bad news. That's why, despite three professionals, people who are well educated here, showing you so much about the situation of the dead, you still believe you are not telling the truth. I could sense that. I don't know where that culture came from. And I think it's a duty of the elites of this country, to preach some optimism. And I think we need a new narrative in this country, where the elites in this country preach hope to the next generation. Make them believe that this country is going somewhere. For example, we are the first country that came up with M-Pesa, a world-class money transfer service. Nobody talks about that. We are one of the few countries in the world that stood up against the British Empire. Nobody talks about that. So why don't we take pride in our history and our achievements instead of always being negative? Public participation. There was a story the other day about Nyandarua County when there was a budget presentation. Only one person turned up. So I think the public should participate in big major decisions, but they're not interested. I don't know why people are not interested in public issues. We talk in the background, but I don't want to come and talk about them. It is a time we started participating. And like Bunge la Wananchi and so on, they participate, they call people and give their views. Why doesn't the ordinary person do the same? If you pay taxes, why don't you follow those taxes by participating in public forums? About job creation, jobs are created by you and me, not by the government. In this country, only about 750,000 jobs are public jobs, including the counties. All the rest are created by you and me. So as you think about jobs, think about how many jobs you can create. One way to make this country move forward is to give people incentives. What incentives do we give people who go beyond the core of duty? We reward them. I've been giving a very funny example of high schools in this country. They used to do very well when they were run by missionaries who are not paid. But now that the teachers are paid, the schools are performing worse. So can we connect incentives to performance so that when people do well, they go beyond the call of duty, they are rewarded? Finally, I must talk about corruption. And I'll hammer this and I'll keep on saying, we are corrupt because we don't want to work. Period. We must make working in this country a part of our culture. As long as people don't want to work, we are going to keep on complaining about corruption. A good example is, if you go to our schools nowadays, they are full. Students want to go to school. Whether it is at master's, PhD, people want to go to school. Why do you think they are going to school? Is it because suddenly there's a love of knowledge? No, it's because they want to get higher degrees so that they get more money and work less. If you want this country to go somewhere, somebody must sweat. And I hope that person is you.
I'll try to respond to some of the questions. And I do take as good comments for some of the others that I can take back for maybe further digest. When I was sitting there next to the chairman, he asked me to whether I can make a comment on whether there are policies to deal with population growth, because the more the population is growing, the more we are likely to have more debt. Although I was sitting next to him, I hold a different view, which is not influenced by him sitting near me. I hold a very positive notion about population. If you look at the greatest nations on earth, great in terms of economic power, China with over 1 billion people, US with close to, is it more than 500 million people, US? 320 still? They were there about 10 years ago still. India, very mighty. These are countries lending money to us. You can see the small countries like Belgium, they cannot lend. They are poor as entities. I'm not saying big is mightier, but there seems to be a correlation. It depends on what you do as a society, however big or small you are. That's my take. Debt is a very sensitive issue, even at personal levels, sometimes even among families. Even some spouses die without disclosing how much debt they owed. Debt is very sensitive. So I do understand. On the 6th of this month, we were having a meeting at the Central Bank with the Deputy Governor. And I was reminding her there was another meeting coming a few minutes after, and I reminded her to tell the market, whom she was meeting, that now the government has the money from the Eurobond and may have to borrow less from the domestic market, which was a very positive thing. But she kept quiet and told me, you know what, every time we talk about debt, and the Eurobond in particular, people are very annoyed. I do understand. In the office, I do always remind my seniors, public debt management is a duty that calls the highest level of integrity on the individuals who manage debt and the institutions that manage public debt. If you ever get a public officer coming to lie about debt and debt status, take him to court for misleading you. There is no temerity of telling lies here. It is out of professionalism that Kenya has been able to manage debt the way it has done. In fact, some of the countries we were showing you with very high debt levels, if you were to track where the debt went, even in the days of Mobutu Sese Seko, where they used to borrow money and the money would, from the central bank, they will go buy houses in Paris. What happened in Zimbabwe? What's happening in Mozambique, Angola, where the scandal of the day is not scandal about public funds. Actually, it's borrowed funds finding their way in other places. Does it happen in Kenya? Somebody talk about the Eurobond saga. No matter how well it is explained, no matter how detailed, I agree with Dr. Iraki. Pessimism is the problem. In fact, let me tell you one thing. I have met Dr. Iraki many times in media-related issues. We were with Thompson Foundation in Strathmore for quite some time. Kujiri is known, but I didn't know they were so patriotic Kenyans. In fact, I'm very proud of you two gentlemen because you keep on saying the same thing, and there is nothing hiding. In fact, their debt is the most highly audited aspect of government finances. And in fact, there is more scandal about something wrong happening in a parastatal than about debt. You can't afford to lie about debt and get away with it. It's highly documented. So I want to assure those of us who shape public opinions, where you have doubts, seek clarification. Where you have belief that something wrong has taken place, the Constitution gives us leeway to sue any individual. I won't dwell on that so much, but I thought it is very important to put that kind of understanding straight. Somebody spoke about, I think Ogoji spoke about credit rating downgrade by Moody's. In fact, he forgot to speak about the timing. It was on the day Kenya's Eurobond was being priced. And on that day, international creditors offered Kenya 14 billion US dollars. They say they were ready to give Kenya 1.4 trillion on that particular day. Kenya said, no, we don't want your trillions, we just want our just 2 billion. The doors for Kenyan borrowing are so widely open, but we don't take the money. Prudence in debt management is of fundamental importance. It's only that debt management is a thankless job. If actually people were to do what is easy to do at individual levels for public, if somebody came knocking with money today, I'll take to a project. But if governments were to behave like this, they will kill the society. Like happens, Argentina used to be a member of the OECD. It's no longer a member because of poor public finance management. It was actually a middle-income country. Some years, when Argentina was great, almost in quotes, and there was music praising Argentina. There should be music praising Kenya now, but you can hear the pessimism. I will appeal, let me tell you one thing. In any society, and this is about debt, media is the most powerful arm, but power must be used very importantly. Media should be used to inform, educate, and facilitate debates like this. And I also thank Kara for actually organizing such forums, because these are kind of public forums where you hear voices of Mwananchi and the Mwananchi representatives. These are more important because perhaps I have never heard, even in Parliament, such a long session where something like that is discussed. This is too long, even I have never heard of such a... So this is very important where people and the people's representatives are able to speak about things that matter. As I said, debt is very intimate, and that is why it's a sensitive matter, and it requires highest honesty. You spoke about whether Wanjiku is consulted. Let me tell you about debt. Debt is the second last thing you do in public finance. The last thing is to pay debt. And in public finance, the last thing you do is you pay debt and close the book. Before you do that, you borrow. So the contracting of debt is second to last. Before it is contracted, there is public process of committing resources, be they revenues, be they loans that shall be taken. For any program in the budget, there is what we call the budget estimates, taken to Parliament, discussed, amended, and a law called Appropriation Act is passed by Parliament. saying this money shall be allocated to this river or this bridge in this pond part of the... And at that point and during that period, if there are any objection, they are listened, there are objection to those kind of programs. And the parliament itself, actually, Kenya has moved from budget making by the executive to budget making by parliament, the people's representatives. Any appropriation of money to any project is through the authority of the people, through the elected leaders. That is the way we should understand it. That's the way we should participate through our leaders, through forums like this, where you take memorandum to parliament and all those. So Wanjiku is the supreme. By law, money is spent by law. Money is also borrowed by law. When the parliament realizes this money, these programs, needs to be implemented, and we need these resources to implement them, they say, go borrow. What is not the treasury, you are working to look for money, revenue, and the borrowed funds. Go borrow. It's a command, in quotes, from the parliament and the people's representative. In fact, the greatest question we should ask is Wanjiku asked by Minister of Agriculture which agricultural project to support? Is Wanjiku asked which seed to plant in that season? We need to put the other government agencies to task. You know how they relate what they do with the needs of Mwananchi. That is my take, and perhaps you may want to appreciate that while the demands for funds is very enormous in the ministries, Treasury has tried to do the best to give those resources, but in a very, very sustainable manner. But we need more of these forums, and we need to call these other agencies to be able to respond to these questions which are burning the hands of the people. I think that is the way I will take in terms of the questions that are coming up. That is why we should ask the Ministry of Infrastructure why there is traffic jam and why you cannot raise more funds because accessing the city is difficult. There are people who should answer those questions. And that is why we need more of these forums, so that if the people, the Bunge, the National Assembly cannot help in that, then those particular public entities are able to respond to that. As I said, the role of media is very critical in any society. If you do a case study of the role of media in Germany, if you do a case study, you will know what effect it had. If you do a media case study for China, you'll know why China is great. The partnership, or if you do the same for US, and Dr. Iraki has spoken about what CNN show and what doesn't show. If you do a study of media in Rwanda, you know why Rwanda is emerging as a very strong institution country. Media is very powerful. Power needs to be used in the best way to the best benefit of the people where it draws its resources. That is my take. So let's inform truthfully, let's facilitate debate about all these public investments. Let's partner. Kara may be seen to be like just an institution out there, but it's actually partnering with the rest of the society, just the way government, the taxpayers who pay, the people who facilitate these debates, and all other residents' associations, they play a very big role, facilitate. If you don't speak about the issues in our society, we can't solve them. So I think that is a partnership. May all the other active, powerful entities actually partner with the other stakeholders to make it great. There's a student who asked about corruption. I'm sure these are issues that needs to be highlighted by the media, so that people like the Kenya Anti-Corruption needs to be able to support that. There is somebody who spoke also about domestic loans versus borrowing from China. If you remember the risk parameters I showed, domestic debt is very expensive. It's short-term. Rates are 11% for government. For me and you, it's 14% or 13.5% from today. It's very expensive, but we can't run away from. We need to balance the external versus the domestic. What would be bad is if somebody But before I even conclude on the China case about China roads and the China engineers, what we want from China money is a road to serve us for the next 50, but thank God, these countries, the US, the Chinese, they build roads to last 100 years. Unlike what we do with our contractors. We love our engineers, they are ours, we use them, build Kenya, but could our engineers really do a better job? We need them to do a better job, to build roads to last 100 years, so that the lifetime cost of a project is minimized, because we use it for many years. The annual cost of that road becomes less, the repair cost becomes less, we borrow less. So work ethos are very important. And if you look at the Confucian culture from where those engineers are coming from, and if you remember the picture showed by Dr. Iraki of a parliament in Canada without a fence, versus the toilet down street, which has metal shackles, you begin to understand the effect of work ethos and ethos of the society and how that relates to our use of resources. Look at the bungalows in this city, bungalow doors and the balcons with all these metals, sunk cost, because our cultures seem to allow us to steal other people's things. We're schooled in the US, even the chairman of the chairmans of the Senate House had no fence. There are no fences. Money is able to go to the right places, not to defend a thief who is lazy and doesn't want to work. We want our engineers to do a good road to last for 100 years and actually earn for it. So it's a question of choosing, you want the engineers or you want the road? Those are some of the things you need to come to terms with. There was a question of taxes versus debt, the issue of whether project appraisals are done or not. As I said, government is a conglomeration of agencies. Some tax with raising the resources, others they spend the resources, they come with sector policies. We need to call each and every one of these agencies, they use taxpayers' money to account for how they do what they do. This forum is important. We need more of these forums to not only hear our interests, but also to call institutions to account. I think that is my take. Somebody asked whether we need the coal plant in Lamu, and they said that is going to give us a lot of debt. Let me put it clear. Lamu is a public-private partnership. The public there is the power sector, where they'll buy the power from the manufacturer. The ultimate beneficiary would be the consumers who shall have power. I understand you are now on the next phase to electrify the train. Without constant supply of power, you may not do that. But nevertheless, it's not a debt-funded program. LAM is privately financed. Once they produce the power, you and I shall buy the power. Debt versus biofungamano, debt versus projects implementation. Let me say the law is very clear. As I said, Parliament decides where the money should go. And the process is parliamentary. It's not like what used to happen in the past, before 2010. It's Parliament as the final say. It's not Treasury, where money is supposed. In fact, Treasury borrows what Parliament approves. Then Tabu Charles asked pillars of economy, agriculture. So let's call the sectors to account. If it's agriculture, ask them. The way you're asking Treasury here, ask them the sector policies. If revenue goes down, ask Treasury. If debt goes bad, ask Treasury. If agriculture, there is no food security, ask Treasury, ask the Minister of Agriculture, and then he has no answer, ask the ones who ultimately has that final say. But I can tell you food security, very important, funded by Treasury, but somebody should be accountable. The sector ministry that is related to that. And then, and that is related also to what you asked about the Galana. But as I said, it looks like we really need more of this forum. Kara may not even supply the demand. I mean, meet the demand for such forums. We need more. I've always been looking for even a forum, an annual conference on central banking, so that the question asked about inflation can be asked in those forums, and then somebody who deals with the monetary policy responds to that. Conchel asked what is wrong, and we can't pay loans. If it falls due, Constitution is very clear. Go say somebody has flouted the Constitution. If Kenya contracts debt and doesn't pay, the law will know what the law says. The public debt shall be a charge on the consolidated fund services. Take somebody to court. There is no arrears, there is no default. In fact, we have no more room. 74% recommendation by World Bank versus 50%. Between 50% and 74% is a difference of 24% of GDP. What is 24% of 8.7 trillion GDP? You'll find it's almost 2 trillion. If you follow World Bank advice, tell you borrow more. We are not doing that. Yeah, so let me proceed. So let's work with media in a positive way, in a way that we carry lessons learned in these forums to take them to the right agencies, to even highlight challenges that exist in a way that can promote, even in a way that aligns it to the recommended solutions. Akala talks about dealing with tax governance. He spoke about implications of the marginalized. But if you look at what the government has allocated, Parliament, money going to the elderly, money free, those are transfers. Transfers to the end, free medical cover, those are public resources. Free education, primary, secondary, these things, as Dr. Iraki said, they are there, done every day. We're going to begin to believe. Loans to university students, university subsidized education, Kenya, what we have done in education sector makes Kenya a darling of multinationals coming to set shop here because they find highly educated workforce. That setting of corporate headquarters and the companies creates employment for people. In fact, you might think unemployment is a big problem in Kenya compared with other countries. Congolese are trooping, Rwandese are trooping. We don't have such many people in those countries, Kenyans, in those countries. And if they are there, they are working because they are experts, because they were trained through good public policies that Kenya has been implementing over the years. I'm not a spokesman for the government, but I'm telling you these are just basic facts. Basic fact. And when you go out in these regions, you will be a proud Kenyan, because of what has been done by your leaders in the past. There is no money taken from Kenya as debt to go and buy villas in France and others. We have heard these stories about other countries. So we need, as Francis Owino said, we need more of this public sensitization. I fully support that. That is a message I'm taking home. Very strong message about sensitization workshops at counties. And somebody recommended that we also, government, and governments everywhere. I think these governments around here and this particular one, perhaps there is room to up the game in public communication. So I agree with that. Empowering of the informal sectors to make good livelihoods. We need those forums and raise these issues to the people, the ministry related to the small and medium enterprises. I think there is a ministry that deals with that, Ministry of Industrialization, special programs, ministries, and all that. So that each government entity maybe is also made to be able to account for what they do and the resources that they use. And Chair, let me end there. And for those issues that may have been directed to Treasury and we did not respond to, we'll apologize on that. And but if you have very burning one, you can pass it to them, and or to us, to Treasury, and we'll be able to respond. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bonandolo, for those remarks. And I also want to agree, which you also seem to agree, that one of the problems that we might be having on the work you are doing at the Treasury is lack of communication and lack of platform to let people also tell you what they have to say. And as CARA, we are here as partners. So as you do your internal planning, maybe you need to now start having a component to facilitate community leaders to create this kind of platforms to engage. And we are ready to partner, we are ready to make go around the country. Here we have leaders who have grassroots networks, who can be able to mobilize a number of people to just have this kind of discussion. So I think it's good for Treasury to be proactive and to make proper resource allocation so that this information can be something that is continuous. We don't have to wait maybe for once a year kind of forum when people have really created perception and people already think that something is going wrong for us to start coming and defend ourselves. So the message is we are ready to partner and we'll definitely follow up through to ensure that we can work together to give people an opportunity to engage and to ask questions and also to provide solutions, because it's not just about asking questions. People here also have ideas that can be translated into solutions to some of the issues that we are facing. So I want to thank you very much.